Good morning. My name is Gaurav Kohli. I'm a technical sales manager for Telus Business Solutions. I've been at Telus for 5 years, however, I've been in sales for almost 2 decades.
So, Gaurav, thank you for being with us today. What initially drew you to a career in sales? And did you always know you'd move into leadership roles?
So I went to school for biomedical engineering, actually. So during the program, I actually did a little practicum or a job shadow as a biomedical technologist, for Richmond Hospital. I learned that due to high expensive insurance, we weren't actually allowed to do any of the diagnosis on the different equipment. We couldn't take a look at the circuit boards or anything that we were really learning in school. And essentially, our roles were to do inventory control, make sure we're managing, allocating the chairs, the beds, the defib machines, etc., to the right units and making sure we're tracking them from a warranty perspective. So it was a lot of the inventory control, and that's not really was my forte. It didn't really interest me, especially with going to the school for what I was going for. And I really enjoyed talking to customers. I really enjoyed just talking to people, meeting different people, and really helping them find what they were looking for. So I really enjoyed sales. So I figured that it'd be good to get into the equipment side sales for biomedical engineering. Interesting enough, in order to get into medical equipment sales, you needed anywhere from 5 to 10 years of sales experience. And to get that sales experience, you needed to get a sales job. So I went back to school and finished my marketing management and professional sales diploma at BCIT, and decided that would help me start a career job. Yeah, I started in sales and haven't gone back to biomedical engineering, but at one point, who knows, that's essentially what drew me into this career path of sales, which wasn't the initial plan.
And looking back at your early career, is there a pivotal moment or mentor who shaped your leadership style or approach to business?
One of the, there's a couple of things that I live by. One of them is, which hill do you want to die on? And a second is pain, long-term gain. So those are two essentially fundamentals that I look at. Everything I do, last decade, I've been doing it based on those two, because there's a lot of challenges when you're working, going through different internal politics, customer politics, and you really want to figure out where do you really want to stand, like where do you want to make a stand, and where you have to be flexible, because essentially you gotta have a bit of a flexibility between work and customer, and really understand they both have their own objectives. Customers will drive you to a certain aspect where customers just want everything at half the price because they're looking at cost measures. The business obviously has a margin to uphold. You have to understand the requirements for both ends and really make sure that you're supporting the business that you're working for, but also supporting the customer through their buying cycle. So, and I think the short-term pain, long-term gain goes into, there's different opportunities you'll come across, different customers you'll come across. You got to realize, for the greater good, maybe a conversation you can pause today to have that bigger, larger conversation tomorrow. So, or from a career standpoint, you may want to look at moving to another role, and maybe it's not as lucrative as you would like, but essentially, is it helping you get towards or achieve your goal, right? And so maybe you take a short-term hit on, it could be compensation, it could be how hard you have to work, maybe it's like where you have to go to work, etc., to get that experience so you can actually move to the next level. So short-term pain, long-term gain. So a couple of pivotal statements from a couple of my mentors that really helped kind of shape the way I started looking at business, looking at life, and looking at just work in general.
Thank you so much. And what are some of the most underrated skills that make someone excel in sales or team leadership today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's really important when you look at skills, soft skills. I don't know if there's any I think it's pretty understood that communication skill is critical. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You have to have exceptional communication skills. But where you look at how does that apply to sales is beyond just having a pitch. You got to be actively listening to customers. You have to clearly convey what your vision is, what the strategy is, and really, and you take that back to the team, as if you're managing a team, is how do you effectively communicate what the organization's goals is and share that with the team members so then they can further that with, when they're talking to their customers. So I think it's really important for number one to have strong communication skills. And when you're in sales, it's really important from a customer standpoint because customers aren't looking to be sold. No one really likes being sold. But as a salesperson, I actually don't think of myself as a salesperson. You're essentially helping the customer meet solve their business challenges, right? So you're trying to find or understand what the customer challenges are, where the business challenges are, and then seeing if you have a solution for the company you represent, and if there is a solution that can help that business grow, whether it's achieving the goals, whether it's they're hitting a roadblock, is pushing them to the next level, is whatever it is, wherever they are at the curve of their business, essentially is helping them and move them to the next level. I think that's really important to understand. When you talk about business acumen, it is understanding market trends, understanding the financial implications of a customer if they were to go with path A or path B, based on your experience, based on what you've done with other customers, based on the industry. What would happen if they don't adapt to change, to a new solution, to a new technology? How would that hinder them? Would they still be able to get by, etc.? So it's just really important to understand that and share those risks with the customer. I think it's really important. Another one that comes to mind is being able to think or problem solve. I think it's really important, moving beyond just individual sales, but as leaders, you need to identify, the different opportunities within your team, the different opportunities as a customer or as a salesperson to your customer, different opportunities within what you have to be able to anticipate the challenges that they'll have, that they're going to, get into, and be able to share some of those challenges and create those into opportunities. That's a couple of three, and then I think you got to be adaptable. I've been in technology, from a career standpoint, I've been in technology since day one. I love technology, and one of the big reasons is because technology is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. 5 years later, you got different technologies. The solutions are constantly changing. You constantly have to adapt, and I think this is where you have to be able to pivot quickly. You have to be able to learn new technologies. You have to be able to bounce back. Especially if there's a setback, in a particular solution, if there's a setback in a particular process that was rolled out, you have to really quickly bounce back and help the customers out. And same with the customers, because they'll implement something and it may not work. So you have to be able to help them tweak that and quickly help them bounce to another way. So so I would say it's communication skills, problem-solving skills, I think, and then being able to be adaptable are critical.
And you've worked in both corporate and entrepreneurial environments. What do you think the next generation of business builders should understand about long-term growth and scaling smart?
Really good question. So, yes. So I think it's really important as an entrepreneur, especially when you're trying to build a business for long-term growth, you're projecting yourself, you're having a solid 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and also what does that look like? What is your end goal? If you're looking at growing the business, are you looking at getting a business acquired? Are you looking at acquiring businesses? What is the end goal? And essentially, what are your 3 to 5 year objectives to achieve some of those goals? And then from there is figuring out what are some of the technologies, some of the solutions, the people, what do you actually need on a day-to-day basis to help achieve that goal? So, and no two businesses are the same. And I think that's what makes it really interesting to talk to different customers as you're trying to understand where are they going, what's their personal drive, and really lining that up with what their vision is, right? And I think that's where start connecting some of that. It's really easy to turn passion and drive into success if you have that vision, if you're looking, forward looking at 5 years, because you don't want to implement or you don't want to make changes today that will circumvent that and get you to go to a different path, right? Essentially your goal should be is whatever decisions you're making today are really for the 3 to 5 year goal. It's going to help towards that goal that you're looking at. So I think it's really important to always think about where you're going, rather than having a tunnel vision view of, hey, I have an immediate issue today, I need to solve this today, let's worry about tomorrow another day.
And the final question that we have is, what's a lesson failure taught you that success never could?
That's a really good question. So when I look at failures, I think it's just you have to look at failures as like you said, it's an opportunity to learn from. It's an opportunity to take away and say, okay, how do you circumvent this for future? How do you make sure this doesn't happen again? I wouldn't say a failure, but I would say is when I was younger in my initial stages of my career, I was driven by financially money, right? And I would look at organizations that would be paying more to kind of do the jump and move to another organization for the role, but also for the increase in salary or incentive. And I learned in the first 5-6 years that it was a short-term view of solving the immediate need today of I just want to make more money. But it didn't really help the 5-year view, the 10-year view of where do I want to go? What do I want to achieve? What is the success I want to have? And one of the things that, like I was mentioning in the beginning, short-term pain, long-term gain, one of the mentors mentioned to me or shared with me was you have to look at, you have to be able to stay in a job. And even though you can move to another role and make more money, but you have to be able to put up with whatever you're doing if it's helping you get to your goal. One of the big things about organizations is in order to grow within the organization, you have to build a brand. And it's really tough if you constantly move different organizations. You're essentially starting from ground zero. Even though you've got 5 years, 10 years experience, it all boils to your day one on that job, your day employee 2050, but your day one. And that's where you are. And now you have to work, start from ground zero and really rebuild your brand within the organization in order to move up. And if your goal is to move up within an organization, if your goal is to get more experience and take on more challenges, you'll have to do and stay at a job and actually, regardless of the salary or the income or the incentives, but you would have to put up with whatever you're doing in order to excel at that before you can move to the next level within the organization. And I think I learned that very I'd say early, but not early enough, because initially I would be starting with ground zero every time I would move, and that's where you're always constantly moving, and it becomes a lateral move from an experience standpoint, even though your income might be going up.
Thank you. And any final advice that you have before we wrap this up today?
Final advice, I would say that, it's always plan in advance. I think that you have a lot of time. There's a lot of opportunity out there. I think that, you really want to figure out what do you really love doing. I think it's really important to understand if you love technology, or if you love real estate, or if you love cars, it's important to understand what do you love and how do you turn that into a career, right? Whether it's starting a business or whether it's working for a business that is offering that solution or that product or that service. I think it's really important to figure that out and then apply for those roles, because I think you will excel at those jobs because now there's a little bit of a passion there's a little bit of drive there, and this is something that you really love doing, and you just do it because you love doing it. So I think that's why my biggest recommendation would be is when you start looking at applying for roles, look for roles that you actually have some interest in that industry, you have an interest in that technology, that interest in whatever that is that company is doing. Because if there's that interest there, they'll come across when you're going through the interview process, when you're going through to the working for the company, and when you talk to, if they have customers, you're talking to their customer. Everyone's that passion, excitement that will get through and come across, and that's what people want to see.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.